Welcome. I'm excited to have you join. My name's Sura. I'm a meditation coach and trainer. Today, talking about how meditation can help us with challenging, difficult thoughts and emotions. Many people today are feeling the stress of the world, and there is such a thing as compassion fatigue, taking in a lot of information and being tuned into everything that's around you. And it can be hard to really know what is yours and what is someone else's when you're feeling this internal pressure and angst. And today, there are so many ways to avoid and deny our inner pain. And we see what happens when people don't really acknowledge how they're feeling, or if they're out of touch with their emotions and their deeper thoughts. And one of the reasons that people find meditation so challenging is that they do not want to sit with their thoughts. They do not want to be present. They don't want to watch their thoughts. They don't want to feel their feelings and their emotions. And this is precisely why people avoid meditation. And it's one of the most wonderful ways that meditation helps us to find internal balance and to heal our emotions, to heal past wounds, past conditioning. And I'd like to share a little bit more about that today and how meditation actually helps us to embrace all that's going on in our inner world. So again, today what we see a lot of is avoidance and denial. Denial that we feel anxiety, that we feel an inner impeding stress and, this churning that's going on, grasping in our mind and our energy that kind of keeps us twisting and turning and not really able to feel completely settled inside, not feeling that peacefulness to just be present. And the way this shows up is that people overuse social media, the internet, Netflix. They start to eat and consume and engage in things that distract them away from their pain. And perhaps they'll drink alcohol. A lot of people need alcohol to relax and to just be at ease. So there's alcoholism, there's drug use, cannabis use. People go to any means to try to get the edge off and to just feel at a kind of even state. And those are short-term fixes, because anytime you go to chips and chocolate cake, it doesn't really fulfill and satisfy you. Maybe it can distract you in the moment, but long-term, it's not going to really help you and allow you to come to a higher baseline of happiness and inner contentment. And the way that you can actually do that is through the practice of meditation. And again, a lot of people don't want to meditate because they don't want to be present with their own thoughts. They find that they have a lot of negative thoughts, chaotic thoughts. They want to cover that up by doing, constant consuming, constant engagement, which is really exhausting. It's totally exhausting. It's such a good way to go to burnout. And that's what we see today. When we see violence and war and hatred and bullying and domination, it all comes from a lack of acknowledgement of what's really going on in here and projecting that darkness, that hatred out there. And that's the misguided action that happens when we don't take time to be present with ourselves. So the way that meditation helps us is that practice of simply sitting and being with our thoughts as they are, being with ourselves as we are. And that when we start to meditate, we begin to really tap into how we truly feel. And oftentimes, many people who have been on the path, who've been practicing, you'll begin to discover that these deeper emotions start arising. So we live in such a fast-paced world with a lot of overstimulation. So what happens when we are busy running from this thing to that thing is that we have experiences, life experiences and events, and we don't take the time to process those experiences. So what happens is we might have a really strong experience with someone, and then we go on to the next thing, and now that experience is kind of locked in our body, and it gets encapsulated, it's stuck there, and it doesn't have a chance to fully release. So we have a lot of unprocessed life experiences that don't get fully acknowledged if we don't have space and quietude and reflection around them to really understand, why do I feel funny about that? Why did that not hit me in the right way? And what happens in meditation is that you begin to have a realization of your deeper feelings and emotions about your past, perhaps about your future, or even in the moment. And it can start to feel very intense because you're really being with it. You're taking time to face it fully, to look at it, and to look at things that, we don't always want to look at and acknowledge. I think the biggest culprit of today is the negative feelings that we have, or the bad feelings that we label as negative emotion, like depression and anxiety and overwhelm. We don't give ourselves permission to just be human and say, that's what I feel, because our culture is so stuck on positivity, so stuck on these images of my life is so great, and it's a facade. So we all go through many, many emotions, different kinds of emotions, highs and lows, and life is suffering. Suffering is part of life. And when we begin to really acknowledge that and we feel comfortable, we look at it, what happens is you feel the intensity of the emotion. So let's say you're sitting still and you start to realize that there is this depression that starts arising from nowhere, just a sadness and depression. And you can just allow yourself to be with that and allow yourself to feel that, perhaps even express it. So as I mentioned before, if we have a life experience such as a severe stress or a trauma, that severe stress and trauma gets caught, encapsulated, stuck in our body, stuck in our energy, and it just stays there without being fully processed. And when we meditate these things, we kind of bring them up and we give them expression. We give them through that feeling, actually being willing to feel. We say that healing is feeling is healing. So when you take that time to pull that back up and feel it and express it, it no longer has that grip on you. It's not just sitting in your energy. You've released it. And that's how meditation helps us to find balance in our emotions. So the second thing is that meditation helps us to become more aware of our feelings, our emotions, the sensations in our body, the real thoughts that we're having, our beliefs. It helps us have more awareness about that. And when we have that awareness, we're more connected to our inner self. It creates a stronger connection to the inner self. And the reason that's important is that today we're focused outwardly. Everything pulls us out, When we watch TV, it pulls us out. When we're reading something, it pulls us out of ourselves rather than going inward. So meditation is the time where we focus all the energy inward with a gentle awareness of what's around us, but we're not being pulled out of our center. Sometimes we're thinking about the future. We're literally being pulled out of our center, out of the present moment. But when we take time to meditate, we keep orienting ourselves back here, back in our body, back into the moment, over and over again, back to the breath. And it's a constant practice because the mind is everywhere. It's kind of trying to take us everywhere but here. And there's an energy that happens when we meditate. It begins to gather and settle, and we start to feel more settled and more present in the moment. And this presence is very relaxing, and it's a healing state that makes you feel more clear, more calm, confident. And that's the state that we're promoting, that we're encouraging and fostering through the practice of meditation. So that's essentially how it helps us to balance our emotions. And meditation is a constantly changing practice. You'll never have the same meditation experience over again. It's always different. One day you can have a good practice, the next day it can be horrible. So the key is to stay with it no matter what. And these times right now are such trying times. We have natural disaster, the threat of war. We have global, social, political unrest around. So it's really easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of information. And the energy of war, of conflict, confrontation, and fighting is present right now. So it's important to take this time to double down on your spiritual practice and work on yourself, be with yourself. Sometimes this is one of the greatest services that we can offer to the world, is to really know our own self, to be in touch with our emotions and our feelings, and to take time when we feel uncomfortable and unsettled and angsty inside, to take time out, to be willing to pull ourselves off the computer, to be willing to, go inside and nourish that and look at that and be with everything that's within our own selves, and how healing and instrumental it can be to our overall health and well-being when we take the time to really do that. And I think it takes courage, and there is a fierce surrender that happens. It's not an easy surrender. You have to be fierce. You have to be strong. It takes effort to sit in meditation, to be in meditation. But once you're there, it's the most blissful, rejuvenating, calming, empowering states that you can ever experience. So yes, it takes some effort and energy, but it's worth it.